Fall 1943. Fort Custer, Michigan. The German military cook stared in disbelief at the walk-in refrigerator stocked floor to ceiling with fresh meat, dairy, and produce. After 2 years managing field kitchens with dwindling rations on the Eastern Front, this cold room of abundance represented impossibility made material. "All this for prisoners?" he asked the American sergeant through an interpreter. The response left him momentarily speechless. "This is for everyone, and you'll be helping prepare it." Across American prison camps that autumn, approximately 3,700 captured German military cooks confronted a reality that contradicted everything Nazi propaganda had taught them about American resources and values. They discovered a nation where feeding prisoners the same food as guards wasn't exceptional but standard procedure, where kitchen waste exceeded many German military rations, where cooking followed democratic rather than hierarchical principles. These professional cooks, trained in Germany's rigid culinary tradition of rank-appropriate meals, would find themselves participating in a system where a private ate exactly what a colonel ate, served in identical portions from the same pots. The mathematics of equality were being written in flour and butter, in meat and vegetables, revealing an American approach to food that rendered German military stratification not proper order, but needless division. What began as shock at American practices would evolve into complete philosophical transformation. German military cooking under the Third Reich operated as a microcosm of Nazi hierarchy. Wehrmacht records show that by 1942, field kitchens maintained 3 distinct menus. Officer rations including coffee with real cream and sugar, meat at every meal, and white bread. Non-commissioned officer rations with reduced portions of meat, darker bread, and coffee without cream. Enlisted rations featuring minimal meat, coarse bread, and ersatz coffee made from roasted grain. As supplies dwindled, this stratification intensified. Officers' meals remained relatively unchanged while enlisted men's portions decreased dramatically. The captured cooks, mostly sergeants and corporals who had managed company kitchens serving 120-200 men, arrived with this hierarchical mentality firmly ingrained. Military records show these men had survived basic combat training before assignment to cooking duties. They weren't civilian chefs, but soldiers who cooked, averaging 4 to 6 years of military service. Their culinary training emphasized efficiency, minimizing waste, and maintaining morale through proper food distribution according to rank. Fort Custer's POW mess hall, typical of larger American camp facilities, served approximately 1,500 prisoners daily, requiring extensive infrastructure. The kitchen contained equipment German military cooks had rarely seen: 8 commercial gas ranges instead of field cooking units, multiple refrigerators maintaining constant temperatures, mechanical mixers capable of handling 50-pound batches of dough, automated potato peelers, and stainless steel preparation surfaces. Most shocking were the standardized portion scoops, ensuring every plate received identical amounts. When American kitchen supervisors explained the meal preparation schedule, 3 full meals daily for everyone, the German cooks initially assumed this applied only to American personnel. The revelation that prisoners would receive the same 3,500-calorie daily diet as their captors contradicted fundamental Nazi principles about proper resource allocation. Military records document the confusion of German Staff Sergeant Otto Keller, previously responsible for a Panzer Division field kitchen. "I asked them to clarify which food was for the officers. They said there was no difference. Everyone eats the same here. This struck me as both wasteful and strange." This insistence on equality would deliver the first crack to the ideological foundation these men had operated under for years. The American mess hall, with its abundance and democratic distribution, began their education into a different worldview, measured in equal portions served to unequal ranks, a revolution delivered through daily bread. The first infantry assignment revealed America's true power more effectively than any battlefield defeat. December 1943, Fort Robinson, Nebraska. Master Sergeant Carl Brenner, who had supervised field kitchens for the Afrikakorps, stood with clipboard in hand as American quartermaster personnel opened storeroom after storeroom. The numbers he recorded seemed fictional. 2,400 pounds of beef stored in walk-in freezers, 1,800 pounds of chicken, 500 pounds of butter, 600 dozen eggs, 1,200 pounds of potatoes, 800 pounds of refined white sugar. Most astonishing was the casual attitude of American personnel toward these stores. This represented just 1 week's supply for a medium-sized camp. German military cooks accustomed to measuring coffee beans by the gram now witnessed coffee stored in 100-pound burlap sacks. Wehrmacht kitchen staff who had stretched meat with fillers for years saw American cooks trim fat from surplus beef before cooking. Bakers who had extended flour with sawdust in desperate times now handled unlimited white flour, cases of fresh eggs, and real vanilla extract. The psychological impact of this abundance was immediate and profound. American military rations during 1943 provided each person 3,500 or 4,000 calories daily, featuring 12 ounces of meat, 3 ounces of butter or margarine, 16 ounces of fresh vegetables, 3 eggs weekly, 8 ounces of milk, and unlimited bread. By comparison, German military rations had deteriorated to approximately 2,000 calories for frontline troops by late 1943, with rear echelons receiving 1,600 calories or less. Officer supplements had maintained higher standards for leadership, but even these had diminished significantly. Where American camps provided 12 ounces of meat daily per person, German field kitchens struggled to provide 6 ounces every other day for enlisted men. German cooks learned American military cooking procedures through direct participation. Daily routines began at 4:30 a.m. with breakfast preparation, typically featuring eggs, bacon or sausage, pancakes or toast, coffee with real sugar and milk, and fruit juice, items German soldiers hadn't seen together since before the war. Lunch preparation commenced immediately after breakfast service, with dinner planning occurring simultaneously. The concept of advanced planning with guaranteed supplies contradicted years of improvisation with uncertain deliveries. The systematic American approach to food service contradicted expectations of American chaotic individualism. Standard recipes scaled for hundreds, served from centralized kitchens, demonstrated organizational capacity that challenged German assumptions. These recipes, printed on durable cards with precise measurements and cooking times, ensured consistency across all American military installations. German cooks, accustomed to approximation based on available supplies, found this standardization both impressive and initially inflexible. The democratic distribution of food created particular dissonance. Hauptfeldwebel Werner Schmidt, who had managed an officers' mess in France, later recounted, "The first time I was instructed to prepare 200 identical pork chops, I asked which were for officers. The American sergeant looked confused and said, 'Everyone gets one chop.' In Germany, officers would receive 2 or 3 while enlisted men might share one. This American system seemed impossible to sustain. What German cooks initially viewed as temporary abundance gradually revealed itself as standard American practice. Weekly supply deliveries arrived with mechanical precision. Ingredients considered luxury items in Germany, butter, eggs, chocolate, coffee, appeared in quantities that allowed liberal use. Most revealing was the approach to leftovers. German military kitchens had repurposed every scrap by necessity, while American mess halls discarded edible food if presentation quality declined. This casual relationship with surplus demonstrated a fundamentally different relationship with resources. By February 1944, German cooks across American camps had fully absorbed the first lesson of their captivity. American abundance wasn't propaganda or special treatment, but the baseline of American military logistics. The impossible pantry had revealed itself to be merely the standard American larder, an ordinary abundance that quietly dismantled years of Nazi claims about American resource limitations. Fall 1943. Camp Aliceville, Alabama. Master Sergeant Wilhelm Krauss stood at the serving line, sweating in the southern heat as he portioned out identical slices of roast beef to the long line of men. After 16 years in the German military, where he had carefully measured larger portions for officers and smaller ones for enlisted men. The mechanical repetition of sameness felt almost subversive. The American mess sergeant had handed him a serving implement, a precise 4-ounce ladle, with simple instructions. 1 scoop per man, no exceptions. That metal ladle, with its democratically measured sameness, became Wilhelm's first lesson in American equality. By October 1943, German cooks had fully integrated into the camp kitchen operations across America. What initially seemed like bizarre inefficiency revealed itself as systematic abundance. American military food logistics operated on a scale that dwarfed German capabilities. While Wehrmacht supply lines stretched thin across Europe and North Africa, the American Quartermaster Corps delivered standardized ingredients to camps nationwide with remarkable consistency. Refrigerated transport ensured fresh meat and dairy reached even remote locations. The system wasn't merely larger, it operated on fundamentally different principles. The concept of equal portions regardless of rank represented the most visible break from German military tradition. In Wehrmacht kitchens, officers received more meat, finer cuts, and special side dishes. American military mess halls functioned on the radical premise that every man's nutritional needs were identical. This democratic approach extended beyond mere portion size. Quality remained consistent regardless of who received the plate. The philosophical implications challenged years of ingrained hierarchical thinking. Specific meals prepared in POW camps documented the gap between systems. A typical dinner in late 1943 included 8 ounces of meat, beef, pork or chicken, 2 vegetables, 4 ounces each, potatoes or pasta, 6 ounces, bread with butter, dessert and coffee. Army records confirm this menu applied to both prisoners and American personnel. This single meal exceeded what German field marshals received in the later war years. The America that Nazi propaganda had described as weak and resource-poor somehow fed its prisoners better than Germany fed its generals. The numbers told an undeniable story. Camp Aliceville's kitchens, typical of larger facilities, prepared approximately 4,500 meals daily, 3 meals for 1,500 men. Each day required 750 pounds of meat, 900 pounds of potatoes, 600 pounds of vegetables, 450 dozen eggs, and 375 pounds of sugar. Most revealing was the waste. Approximately 5% of food prepared went uneaten. This discarded abundance represented more than many German civilians received weekly. German cooks witnessed this system daily, and their Nazi certainties began crumbling. Feldwebel Josef Müller, who had managed officer kitchens in Berlin before capture, wrote in a censored letter home, "The Americans waste more food than we served." At first I thought this showed poor discipline, but I've come to understand it demonstrates incredible strength. They can afford to waste what we cannot afford to provide. The transformation accelerated as Thanksgiving 1943 approached. German cooks found themselves preparing a distinctly American celebration feast, one that revealed national abundance in a single meal. They roasted whole turkeys, 1 bird for every 14 men, prepared cranberry sauce from fresh berries, and baked pumpkin pies with real sugar and eggs. The single-day food allocation for this holiday meal exceeded weekly rations for German civilians. Most significantly, every person in camp, American guards and German prisoners alike, received identical portions. The meal represented more than mere calories. It demonstrated national coordination and logistical capacity that left German cooks stunned. America could somehow deliver fresh turkey to hundreds of camps simultaneously while fighting a global war. The same nation supposedly weakened by democratic inefficiency managed to feed its enemies a feast that Germany couldn't provide its own citizens. The turkey, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie delivered a powerful message no propaganda film could counter. America's system produced abundance Germany couldn't match. Cooking democracy had revealed itself as both more humane and more efficient than the authoritarian alternative. Spring 1944. Camp Hearn, Texas. The aroma of Sauerbraten filled the mess hall as Feldwebel Ernst Hoffmann carefully turned the marinated beef roasts browning in massive skillets. After 8 months cooking standard American military meals, this moment represented something unexpected. Permission to prepare traditional German dishes using American ingredients and equipment. The camp commander had approved the request as a morale boost, not realizing he had authorized a profound cultural experiment. For Ernst, who had trained in Berlin restaurants before the war, this American-German fusion represented something beyond recipe adaptation. It was his first creative act as a captive. The approval for German cooks to prepare traditional dishes came gradually across the camp system. Initial concerns about special treatment gave way to practical recognition that trained cooks could improve meal quality and efficiency. Camp records show these cultural meals typically occurred monthly, alongside standard American fare. The selection of dishes revealed both practical limitations and cultural significance. Sauerbraten, marinated beef roast, Rouladen, beef rolls with pickle and bacon filling, various wursts made from ground meat, spatzel, egg noodles, rotkohl, red cabbage, and Kartoffelpuffer, potato pancakes. These dishes represented regional German traditions spanning Prussia to Bavaria, creating unexpected unity among prisoners from different backgrounds. The adaptation process itself revealed the contrast between cultures. German recipes designed for scarcity encountered American abundance with surprising results. Traditional Kartoffelpuffer, typically made with minimal eggs and flour to bind grated potatoes, transformed when American supplies allowed 3 eggs per batch instead of 1 stretched with water. Rotkohl, traditionally prepared with vinegar to preserve scarce cabbage through winter, found new expression when fresh cabbage was plentiful year-round. Most revealing was the meat. German cooks accustomed to stretching ground meat with bread found themselves working with full-fat American beef in quantities their restaurants in Germany rarely received even before the war. The cultural exchange flowed in both directions. American guards and kitchen supervisors encountered German cuisine through these meals, while prisoners experienced American cooking techniques. Camp Hearn records document several American personnel requesting recipes for German dishes to send home. German cooks similarly noted American methods that improved efficiency, pressure cookers that reduced cooking time, mechanical mixers that simplified dough preparation, refrigeration that allowed advanced preparation. This culinary diplomacy created unexpected bonds across enemy lines. A 1944 survey at Camp Crossville revealed the popularity of these cultural exchange meals. Among American personnel, 72% rated German-prepared meals excellent or very good, with Sauerbraten and apple strudel receiving highest ratings. German prisoners overwhelmingly preferred their traditional foods, but expressed appreciation for American dishes previously unknown to them, particularly turkey, corn on the cob, and various desserts. The survey noted 64% of prisoners had never tasted peanut butter before captivity, with opinions sharply divided between those who developed a taste for it and those who found it completely foreign. Hauptmann Wilhelm Braun, captured in Tunisia and trained as a hotel chef before the war, reflected in a permitted letter home. "The Americans have allowed us to cook our Heimat dishes with their ingredients. The results are both familiar and strange. The flavor of home made with an abundance we haven't seen since before the war. I prepared Rouladen last week with beef so marbled it would have been reserved for party officials in Berlin. The American sergeant asked me for the recipe to send to his wife. I find myself explaining German cooking to a man whose country I was fighting months ago." These kitchen encounters humanized both sides more effectively than any propaganda campaign. The shared experience of preparing and enjoying food bridged cultural gaps when language failed. German cooks found themselves less as prisoners and more as cultural ambassadors, their skills recognized and valued. American personnel discovered that enemy soldiers were individuals with regional traditions, personal histories, and culinary expertise. The mess hall became neutral territory where recipes replaced regulations, if only temporarily. By summer 1944, special German meals had become regular features in many camp schedules, anticipated by prisoners and Americans alike. This culinary exchange represented something beyond mere food. It was practical diplomacy conducted through ladle and mixing bowl. In kitchens across America, former enemies found common ground in the universal language of well-prepared food, building community one meal at a time. Autumn 1944. Ogden, Utah. Oberfeldwebel Friedrich Weber adjusted his white chef's hat, still strange to wear as a prisoner, and surveyed the long banquet tables set for the Agricultural Association's harvest dinner. 6 German cooks from nearby Camp Ogden had been selected to prepare a Thanksgiving meal for 200 American farmers whose fields they had helped harvest. The irony wasn't lost on Friedrich, captured enemy soldiers cooking a celebration feast for civilians whose sons were fighting in Europe. Yet here he stood, overseeing roast turkey, mashed potatoes and pumpkin pies prepared according to American traditions, but with German attention to detail. "Make it perfect," he instructed his team in German. "Show them what we can do." As the war progressed and labor shortages intensified across America, the skills of German military cooks found unexpected application beyond camp walls. Initially limited to supervised work in agricultural settings, by mid-1944, their culinary expertise had become a valuable resource. Military records document approximately 175,000 German POWs working in American agriculture by late 1944, with roughly 2,800 trained cooks among them. These cooks increasingly found themselves preparing meals not just for fellow prisoners, but for American communities facing staffing challenges. The occasions varied widely across regions. In Minnesota, German cooks prepared harvest meals for farming communities. In Colorado, they staffed kitchens at canneries processing vegetables their fellow prisoners had harvested. In Virginia, they assisted with community functions when local cooks were unavailable due to war work. Each setting provided new exposure to American society beyond barbed wire, revealing a civilian culture even more abundant than military camps suggested. Gefreiter Hans Müller, who had cooked for a Luftwaffe officer's mess before capture, wrote in his permitted journal, "Today, I prepared lunch for American factory workers at the canning plant. We served each person a sandwich with nearly a quarter-pound of ham, potato salad with real mayonnaise, apple pie, and milk. The workers ate quickly, complained about the food being ordinary, left portions uneaten, and returned to work. What these Americans consider ordinary workers' food would be a special occasion meal in Germany now. I wonder if they know this." The contrast between American civilian food distribution and German wartime rationing couldn't have been starker. By late 1944, German civilians received approximately 1,100 calories daily when rations were fulfilled, often less in practice. Meat allocations had dropped to 250 grams weekly, fats to 90 grams, and sugar to 230 grams. Meanwhile, American civilian rationing, implemented to prevent hoarding rather than from actual scarcity, still provided approximately 3,000 daily calories. Items strictly rationed in America: sugar limited to 12 ounces weekly, meat to 28 ounces, exceeded total German civilian allocations. German cooks witnessed this disparity firsthand. Working alongside American civilian cooks, they observed home kitchens with refrigerators, gas stoves, and electric mixers, equipment found only in commercial settings in pre-war Germany. They shopped in grocery stores where rationed items remained available, if limited, and unrationed foods remained plentiful. Most revealing was the matter-of-fact attitude Americans maintained toward this abundance. It wasn't celebrated, but expected. Information flowed both ways across the Atlantic. German cooks sent permitted letters describing American conditions, though military censors removed specific references to food quantities. These communications nonetheless conveyed the reality of American abundance through approved descriptions of daily life. A census report from December 1944 noted, "POW correspondence increasingly contrasts American food with assumed conditions in Germany. While specific quantities are removed, the general impression of American abundance remains clear to recipients. The psychological transformation among German cooks accelerated through these community experiences. The abstract concept of American resources became concrete through direct participation in civilian food systems. Theoretical propaganda about American decadence transformed into practical evidence of systematic abundance. Most significantly, their skilled labor earned respect from Americans who initially viewed them only as enemy soldiers. By winter 1944-45, as news of Germany's deteriorating position reached camps, many German cooks began planning for post-war careers based on their American experiences. They sketched restaurant concepts, recorded American recipes, and studied production methods that might be adapted to civilian use. Friedrich Weber, watching American families enjoy the meal his team had prepared, recognized that his future lay in feeding people rather than armies. The skills that had served an authoritarian regime would find new purpose in civilian life. A transformation from military cook to restaurateur, from serving hierarchy to serving community. Spring 1952, Frankfurt, West Germany. Ernst Hoffmann adjusted the sign above his new restaurant. Amerikanische Spezialitäten und deutsches Essen. Inside, former Feldwebel Hoffmann surveyed his creation, a diner modelled after those he'd seen during his 3 years as a prisoner cook at Camp Herne. The chrome-trimmed counters, vinyl booths, and visible kitchen represented more than decoration. They embodied the transparency and democracy he'd witnessed in American mess halls. Today's special, listed on a hand-lettered sign, offered an impossibility just 7 years earlier. All-you-can-eat fried chicken with mashed potatoes, 3 marks. In devastated post-war Germany, this simple promise of abundance without rationing represented revolution through restaurateuring. Across West Germany, approximately 620 restaurants, bakeries, and food businesses established by former POW cooks between 1947 and 1955 transformed the culinary landscape. These ventures ranged from American-style diners serving hamburgers and milkshakes to traditional German establishments incorporating American production methods. In Munich, Hans Müller opened Hans Hamburger House, featuring ground beef patties on soft rolls, previously unknown to most Germans. In Cologne, Friedrich Weber's bakery produced white bread daily using American mass production techniques. In Hamburg, Wilhelm Krause established one of Germany's first self-service cafeterias, modelled directly on American mess hall efficiency. These businesses introduced American cooking techniques that prioritized standardization and portion size over hierarchical tradition. Restaurant kitchens adopted batch cooking for consistent output, rather than preparing individual plates. Bakeries implemented straight dough methods rather than traditional sourdough processes, enabling higher volume. Most revolutionary was the American approach to customer service, the same quality and quantity regardless of the customer's social status, a direct application of lessons learned in democratic mess halls. Statistical evidence confirmed the growth of American-influenced food establishments across West Germany. Business registrations showed 43% annual growth in restaurants advertising American specialties between 1949 and 1954. The German Hotel and Restaurant Association documented a 267% increase in establishments offering all-you-can-eat options, a concept directly imported from American prison camps. Most tellingly, flour consumption in commercial bakeries increased 312% between 1948 and 1953, reflecting the shift toward American-style bread products. The long-term impact extended beyond individual businesses. Former POW cooks became inadvertent ambassadors of American food systems, introducing concepts that supported Germany's Wirtschaftswunder, economic miracle. Their restaurants demonstrated principles essential to consumer-driven economies: standardization that maintained quality while reducing costs, efficient production that made previously luxury items affordable, and democratic access that created broader markets. These culinary pioneers helped Germans reimagine their relationship with food from scarcity-driven conservation to abundance-driven consumption. In a 1963 interview for Die Zeit, Ernst Hoffmann reflected, "My 3 years cooking in America taught me that abundance comes from efficiency, not privilege." In the German army, we prepared elaborate meals for officers while enlisted men ate gruel. In American camps, we cooked simple, nutritious food for everyone. I built my restaurant on this principle: good food at fair prices for anyone who walks through the door. This isn't just business, it's how society should work. Other former POW cooks shared similar perspectives. Wilhelm Krauss stated in his 1970 memoir, "The Americans asked me to feed everyone equally, the most revolutionary request I'd ever received. I arrived in America believing German methods superior in all things. I returned understanding that their system produced more food with less effort, because it eliminated the complexities of class distinction. My cafeteria succeeds because it serves professors and laborers from the same steam table. This efficiency creates abundance." The philosophical transformation completed itself through these practical applications. Men who had entered American captivity as cooks trained to reinforce hierarchy returned to Germany as entrepreneurs dedicated to democratic abundance. Their restaurants became living demonstrations that prosperity didn't require scarcity elsewhere, that all could be served equally from the same pot. Today, the fast food restaurants, bakery chains, and cafeterias across Germany trace their lineage partly to those former military cooks who experienced American abundance through prison camp kitchens. The legacy of their ladles lives on in standardized portions, efficient production, and the revolutionary concept that good food belongs to everyone. Their story reminds us that sometimes the most profound transformations occur not through force, but through the simple act of asking enemy cooks to feed everyone equally, a request that ultimately helped reshape a nation's understanding of itself and its future.